Hi, welcome back. I'm really happy to introduce our next guest. I was on an air flight out to California once when I do profound reading, and I read an entire issue of Time magazine that day and read about this gentleman. This is Tony Robbins, and he tries to teach people that the impossible is possible. He's the founder and president of Robbins Research Institute, dedicated to the advancement of human potential in bioscience and something we were just talking about, neurolinguistics. He's also interested in child development. He's designed training programs for the U.S. Army. He's consulted with 1984 U.S. Olympic team swimmer Michael O'Brien. He's the author of several books, but perhaps best known for what could be described as a gimmick, but there's a reason for it. It's a metaphor for something.
Exactly.
And that is the people who attend certain seminars end up, after they have completed the seminar, walking across a bed of hot coals. And this means that they have conquered what as a result of your teaching?
Well, as you said, it's a metaphor. It's not to teach them how to walk on fire, but rather to give them an experience of doing something they thought was impossible. You know, all the people in this group made major changes in their life, and as a result of those changes in their exterior world, they began to change the way they thought about themselves and the way they got people to respond to them. The fire walk is a chance for someone to do something they're certain they can't do, they're very afraid of. If they're not afraid of it before they get there, when they stand before a raging fire and think about walking across it without being harmed, that definitely changes their state.
We're not talking about, this is not necessarily a carnival trick, but what, I know that, and also, you know, there's a lot of teaching and weekends and whatever go into this. What principle have they mastered when they walk across the fire?
Well, they've mastered several things. One of the things that they've mastered is the ability to overcome their fear. Because if they're in a fearful state, they will burn. That's been documented. The mind and the body are totally linked. But most importantly, they've learned how to go into a totally focused state on their own personal command. In other words, I call it congruency. If you've got a business person, for example, or a housewife, anybody, they're trying to do something and they start thinking about all these other things. A businessman is doing these calls and he looks out the window and sees it's an 80-degree day and says, I'd love to be playing tennis right now.
Yeah.
So he's not effective in his business, so he gives up and goes to play tennis. Well, as he goes to hit the ball, he starts thinking about the calls he should have made. So what we're talking about is going to such a focused state that bombs could be going off around you and you wouldn't know it. It's just you and the task at hand.
Great concentration.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, over the years, there have been perhaps a number of different ways to define what this is. I mean, you could say that you were meditating. You could say that you were hypnotizing yourself. You have drawn on, I guess, many different psychological disciplines, or many different schools in order to teach this. How do you go about teaching somebody this? What are some of the basic principles? And we can't do it all on one TV show.
Sure, I understand. But neurolinguistic programming, which is a fancy word for how language affects your nervous system, meaning whether it's walking on fire or walking up on a stage or anything else, it's all related to how you feel. For example, one of the ladies in the green room who was here was a bit nervous in the beginning, right? And the reason she was nervous is the kinds of things that she was picturing in her mind, the exact things. By changing what she pictures in her mind, she changes her external state, right, how she feels, and she'll change her behavior.
How much of this is just tricking yourself, and how much of it, in other words, can you be too smart to do this? Meaning, can a really smart person say, wait a second, you know, sure, it's great to think about the blue sky and the blue waters around St. Bart's, but the truth of the matter is, I'm not there.
Well, you can do that, and you can also convince yourself to the level that you're absolutely there even though you're not. I mean, you can experience in your body and your mind so vividly that that becomes true in your own physiology and your own musculature. What we're really teaching people how to do is how to start running their own brain, and not just by picking pictures in their mind, but setting up a new program. We live in a stimulus-response society. This whole show has been about that, right? Somebody sees someone who's bald and there's a stimulus response. Now, that's not true in all cultures. That's true in our culture. The same person can go to another culture and get another response. So what we're teaching people how to do is, instead of responding to the environment the way it's been set up, how to create it the way you want it. For example, if you say to most audiences, Winston tastes good like a cigarette should, you'll hear, and it's 13 years old.
Conditioned response.
Right. How do you spell relief? R-O-L-A-I-D-S. Those are auditory stimulus responses. You can do the same thing, though, so that some people, for example, when they get stressed, they got to reach for food, they got to reach for a cigarette or something else, right, to get themselves in the state they want to be in. What we're teaching people how to do in a few seconds, in a few minutes, an hour at the absolute maximum, depending upon how intense the state is, the same thing used to make them reach for drugs or food or alcohol can now automatically make them reach for their running shorts, reach for a book, a tape, or anything else. So it's not positive thinking.
It's fascinating, but this is a mental technique that you teach. The thing that it seems to remind me most of, that I've personally undergone years ago when I was in Philadelphia, is self-hypnosis. I was always fascinated by the fact that people could set up a a condition in their mind that would help them achieve a certain goal. Is that part of what we're doing?
That's definitely part of what we're doing. And it's accentuating it. It's becoming more precise in how to go about using that and creating it in a very short time. For example, you can take somebody with a phobia. I worked with a woman the other day, 19-year phobia, been in therapy the entire time.
What was the phobia?
She couldn't go into a restaurant without immediately starting to choke, physiological response. So she's been through every kind of therapy. She's a very wealthy woman who travels in a crowd where it's embarrassing. She can't go to dinner. It took us 15 minutes.
I guess that would be embarrassing, walk in the restaurant with her.
She couldn't do it, literally. She had all of her food for the last 19 years delivered to her hotel, or she ate at home, and that's the only place she could go out.
Wow.
Took us 15 minutes. We walked out, and she had her first, dinner in a public place. And what we did is we transferred the emotion of, instead of choking, that part of her brain that caused her to choke, we made it something that was totally pleasant for her. In fact, feelings of ecstasy is what she translated.
Transference. This is what I'd like to do. We have 7 people up here, and among them there must be some fears or phobias. Now, I want you to think honestly about something you'd like to solve while I ask one other question to Tony. How old are you?
25.
Where did you begin to start learning this?
When I was 17 years old on Christmas Eve, I got kicked out of my house. I think it started there. My dad got kicked out first, and I went second. And my mom thought I was on his side, so I had to figure out how to survive, how to make things go well. And I had been exposed to many books. I've read about 1,000 books in the area of personal development. And I got in that business, the business of studying things that fascinated me, teaching them to other people, and gradually I learned that I could get paid very well for doing what I love most.
Which you already know.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're a natural salesman and a natural teacher, but you also are an expert on mind, body, relationships, a scientific expert. Now, who would like to volunteer? I'm serious. Now, who would like to volunteer a phobia or a problem, a fear?
Sure.
A fear. Something you're afraid of you'd like to overcome. Richard?
Speaking in front of large groups of people.
I have a hard time believing that's a fear since he's sitting there.
This is just a small cocktail
This is a small cocktail party? We could simulate it, but the bottom line is what we need is a larger group of people. Can you stand and talk in front of this audience right now?
Well, probably.
Probably. See, I'd be happy to do the piece, but what I'd like to do is, rather than spend the time on it, is make sure that there's some way of measuring and having feedback.
No, okay,
if you want to come tonight, I'll let you come to let me just say, you can come tonight as my guest to the seminar. We're doing the firewalk portion tonight, and if you'd like to do that, I'll set it up for you.
Where are you doing that, Tony?
It's at the Manhattan Center on 34.
You mean he can talk to 500 people tonight if he wants?
I can set
But
it up.
I'm not going to walk on cold.
Let me just say something about the seminar as well. We have 4 different days of seminars. The first seminar is called Fear and the Power of the Firewalk. It's not about learning how to walk on fire. There's no pressure to do that. In fact, 70% of the people come because they want to learn how to run their mind. They want to learn how to be in control completely.
That makes sense.
But 98% end up walking. And as I said, 70% come there to observe, you know. But, for example, last time I was in New York, we had 500 people there. Only 5 didn't walk. And those 5 were applauded because they didn't walk for specific reasons. There's no pressure to walk. If you're the kind of person that normally does what everybody else does, then maybe it'd be important not to walk.
Maybe you've overcome a different kind of fear.
Absolutely.
Someone's on the line with a call. Let's see what's on their mind.
Great.
Okay, this is Bill Boggs on Midday. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, hi. You're on the air. This is Bill.
I'd like to know, please, I have a fear now of going into a hospital because there was a problem in the family that just recently in November we had a cancer death with a malignant tumor. And then somebody else just died this week that I know, maybe about 21 years. I'm about 53. I'm going on 54. That they tie people in the hospital and they'll give you all different kinds of whatever about that. They need this here treatment. Now, and years ago when I was, say, 20, 30, I didn't see this here. No matter which door you were going to walk, they will put you out if you do anything. This can be your family or it can be anybody. In other words,
let me just say something if I can.
Can you put the brakes on just a second there? All right. Hold on. Stay on the line.
Let me first say that I think a fear of hospitals is a worthy fear to have.
Me too. Because they're associated with unpleasant things.
First of all fear is not bad either. See, we're teaching people that you don't want to have the fear stop you. In other words, you don't want fear to immobilize you. You want to have just enough fear so that you get the facts. So the kind of fear that you're expressing is great as long as it doesn't totally immobilize you. Chemotherapy, for example, is mustard gas. It was developed in World War II to kill people. World War I, rather, to kill people, and now it's being transferred in people's veins. There are many articles coming out on chemotherapy right now showing it's totally ineffective. In fact, statistics that show there was a difference in cancer as a result of chemotherapy have been refuted in the last 2 or 3 weeks. We have a whole bioscience division. What I will say to you is that if you want, what you want to be is more resourceful. You want to have as many choices as possible. You want to be able to walk into a hospital, hear what they say, and ask intelligent questions and make decisions based upon what you think is right, based upon comparative analysis. The way in which you can begin to do that, one of the first keys you can realize is is that all human emotion is related to physiology. That is, whether you're scared, depressed, unhappy, it relates to your physiology, your posture, your breathing pattern. If a person is depressed, as an example, they have a specific posture. Think about a depressed person.
You can tell by looking at people walking down the street.
Their shoulders are down, they look down, their breathing is different. You can take that same person, and just by changing their physiology, their posture, their breathing pattern, you change the part of the brain they're using, and they're no longer depressed. I mean, even the average person knows that if you're depressed, they say, go do something. Why?
Right.
When you go do something,
whatever.
you're changing your physiology, you're changing your emotional state. So one thing you can do is when you walk into this facility is begin to operate from a different physiology. That is, walk in physically different and maintain a certain physiology, one that you consider to be confident. Another thing you can do is transfer the pictures you have in your mind about the hospital, and that's something we teach in a seminar I can't do in 1 or 2 minutes.
Visualization.
It's a little more than visualization. It's kinesthetic or body touch programming while you're in a state so that you can set it off. Remember Ivan Pavlov and the dogs, right?
Sure.
He had the dogs there hungry with saliva. He rings a bell, rings a bell, rings a bell. Pretty soon he doesn't need the meat. He just rings a bell. They have saliva.
Right.
You can do that to yourself to put yourself in ecstasy. You can
Just
do that
take a lot of time to work on. I mean, obviously you got to practice it. Those dogs didn't learn it.
It takes about 10 minutes, and that's what we do in the fire. We actually set it up so that the fire makes people feel resourceful. So then, the first time they walk down the fire, when we light it tonight, for example, we'll start around 6:30. By 7, we go down and we light all these fires, big bonfires. And when people see it, they start to go into a unique state. So then we take them upstairs and we show them how to change their physiology and their emotion and their thinking patterns. Then we take them back down and we have it set it off so that when they see the fire, they feel totally confident and strong.
Fascinating.
And we also tell them what to do specifically, obviously.
We're going to take a break. One quick last thing. Where did you get the idea for the fire walk?
I was doing work with coma patients, and the man who started neurolinguistic programming asked me, what can't you do? Because my belief is I could duplicate anything anybody did. And I said, I can do anything. And he said, well, what can't you do? And I thought about firewalking in a dream, woke up and decided if I could do it in my dreams, and if there are other human beings on the planet could do it, then so could you, so could I. Just be a matter of finding the strategy, and that's what I did.
Interesting. Beyond interest. Fascinating, really. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll give you more information about the seminar and see if we got more fears and phobias on the panel. And continue talking about the value of not being afraid to change. Right after this. Welcome back to our program. Behind me, you see people from Wisconsin. They're there. Thank you. Thanks again for coming. You've been a really good audience. Tony Robbins, what can people expect at the seminar tonight? Is it open to the public, or is there pre-enrollment?
No, there's pre-enrollment. It starts at 6:30 p.m. It's at the Manhattan Center on 34th Avenue near Madison Square Garden.
Right. Yeah.
And what it goes is from 6:30 to about 11:30 p.m. And they can expect it's $125 for that event. What they can expect is to be able to take anything that stopped them in the past, any emotion, any limitation, and in a few minutes learn how to be able to change that. They can expect to have an opportunity to walk on the fire, coming not expecting to have to, but knowing that they will be in a state where even though they don't believe it's possible now, by the end of the evening, they'll more than likely walk with no pressure.
You know, on a program like this during the day, the common fallacy is that we only have housewives watching us. In reality, we have all different kinds of people watching us right now, and we have a high percentage of unemployed people.
Yes.
People who are watching this show as an alternative to soap operas and game shows and stuff like that because they want to learn a little something. Yeah. But at the same time, people who, according to my reaction, sometimes I get letters, really do not feel too optimistic about their futures. This is the kind of person who would like to be an achiever or an overachiever but isn't achieving anything at the present time. Right. What kind of pick yourself up by the bootstraps kind of thoughts do you have for the person who's watching now? They're out of work. They don't even have a decent education. They have not completed, they've not completed high school. Right. They don't have trained skills, and they would very much, they're not lazy. That's the one thing they have going for them, but they don't have any doors open in front of them.
Well, what I would say is that the #1 key is, first of all, to realize that they're not alone. I'm a high school graduate, don't have any university education. I was kicked out of my house. I slept in my car for about 3 months.
Hopefully it wasn't a Volkswagen.
It was a Volkswagen.
How did you get in a Volkswagen? You're about, what, 6'4"?
I'm 6'6", but I was 6'2" then, and I was curled up in my Volkswagen, parked in 24-hour markets so that they wouldn't tow me away. So I want people to know that, first of all, that's possible. And what turned me around was several things. One, I figured out, I got myself around where it was better. I got myself an environment where I wasn't surrounded by negativity. I wasn't surrounded by lack of possibility. I managed to get myself around some people that were very successful. And I did anything I could to find out what made them the best, and I decided if I sowed the same seeds, I'd reap the same rewards.
What were some of those the original perceptions?
Number one thing is I developed a list of goals. I got very precise about what I wanted to get, even though I didn't know how to get it yet.
What were some of your early goals?
My original goals...
Sleeping in a Volkswagen, what were some of the things in your early list?
My very early list is that I wanted to immediately go out. I wanted to learn. My major pieces I wanted to learn and I wanted to share. I wanted to learn what made people successful, and I wanted to share that with people. And I realized that I could earn a living doing that. And so I started deciding that what I wanted to do is find out what was the one foundational key to all success. So I found that I thought the answer was knowledge, that, you know, certain people succeed and know things that other people don't know. That's true to an extent, but what I really believe is the difference is something I call personal power, which simply means the ability to take action. You and I were talking earlier about how we both have a belief system in ourselves that, you know, we can work anything out. We can figure a way to do something.
You can do anything you want if you apply yourself.
If you apply yourself. Yeah. And the only way you discover that is if you consistently put out action. If you try until, not I'll try it a time or two and see what happens. Colonel Sanders is a beautiful example of this. There's a Colonel Sanders chicken store in every city that's got 50,000 people or more in the entire United States. How did that happen? Because the man had lots of skill, lots of knowledge, lots of capital, and he started when he was young? No. Started when he was 65 years old, and he got his first Social Security check for $99. Said, I ain't living like this.
Right.
Took action.
Went to one place first.
No, he went to 1,009 places before he got his first yes. Spent 2 years sleeping in his car.
I did not know that.
2 years sleeping in his car. But what he did was he kept on going. He didn't stop. How long do you give your average baby to learn how to walk before you shut him off?
As much time as they take.
Exactly. But see, most adults don't operate from that. They go, I tried it 4 or 5 times, I've been buried, it's not happening, it's not working, and they give up. So I would say know exactly what you want, believe that you can create that, but also make sure that you're taking lots of action. Affirmation's not enough. A lot of people go around saying just affirm it, think positive. That's not enough. Affirmation without application. Affirmation without discipline is the beginning of delusion. There has to be daily discipline.
Without discipline, beginning of delusion. Good thing to remember. Did you notice there's someone standing behind us here?
Yes.
Let's go to one of our friends in the audience. Hi.
Yeah, I was just wondering, physiologically, what changes actually go through the body? You're saying the fear itself is what is producing the burn. Okay, say if I go to the kitchen range and put my foot on the range, it's going to burn because I'm afraid of that. So if I overcome that fear, you can overcome that. You overcome that fear, and you're not going to burn.
What I'm saying is not just the fear. It's a word I use which is called congruency, which is total focus. If you're familiar with Dr. Carl Symington, is a world-famous cancer specialist who's done work showing that just by changing people's thoughts, they can eliminate tumors. He's a very good friend of mine. He's documented that there is a mind-body effect, meaning that when you think certain ways, certain thoughts, you change your physiology inside. You change your biochemistry. You change the electrical activity in your body. Everything is electrical activity. This is electrical activity. This is electrical activity at the atomic level. And then when you change the way fields relate to each other, that you're going to change the way they relate to each other, which includes heat to your body. And that starts with your thought, because that's going to change electrical activity in your body.
So is this a controlled temperature or anything? I mean, could I go up, like I said, could I go up to the kitchen range after I learn this and lean on the burner?
You could do that, and people have done that, and I don't encourage that, because what use is it? See, the purpose, once again, is not to teach you how to control pain or how to not burn. The purpose of this is to give you an example of doing something you thought was impossible. See, we can talk about what's possible all day, but if you do something you thought was impossible, then all the other impossibilities of your life seem to disappear. If you can walk on fire, can you ask for a raise? If you can walk on fire, can you walk up to somebody you really appreciate or admire and express that? It begins to change possibility in your mind, and it's useful as a metaphor, not as change your body forever, although some people have applied it that in a helpful sense.
What happens when someone panics when they're on cold?
They don't panic when they're on cold.
That doesn't happen. It's never happened.
I run the piece, and if someone's not ready, I stop them.
Right.
I've also got everybody in a state. See, right now you're in a certain feeling. If I change your physiology, I can make you feel really tired or bored. If I change it, I can make you feel energized. It's a matter of learning how to run your body and your mind consistently in a very short period of time.
This has been a fascinating. Thanks for that question. Fascinating show, Tony.
Thank you.
Good luck tonight. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Panels, thank you very much, Richard. You look great. Nice to have you on the program, everybody. Keep the hair going. Keep the weight on, keep the weight off, keep painting, and have a very nice weekend, everybody. We'll see you first thing Monday at noon, and if you'd like to join me tomorrow on Saturday morning, I'll be here for your viewing pleasure at noon, live. Have fun. Bye.
Alan Zweibel, original Saturday Night Live writer and Thurber Prize-winning author of The Other Showman, says, "The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is so smart, witty, and inventive that I had to keep reminding myself that I didn't write it.